a lady who was probably the first commander of an armed forces from India. A lady who was living such a graceful life, such a wonderful life. She had the opportunity to become one of the most famous doctors in the country, but she chose the path of revolution. So good morning everybody. I'm Abhishek Singh, and today I am bringing for all of you the story of this wonderful lady who was one of the unsung women warriors in India's freedom struggle. And who was she? Her name was Captain Laxmi Sehgal. In fact, she was not Captain Laxmi Sehgal since beginning, rather she was Dr. Lakshmi Swaminathan. But what made her Captain Lakshmi and later on Captain Laxmi Sehgal? So we will know about her story in today's session. So welcome all of you in this session where we are going to talk about the story of the unsung women revolutionaries of India, and today we are going to talk about the story of Captain Laxmi Sehgal, who was the Azad Hind warrior of India. So let us start without any further delay. You know what, that Captain Laxmi Sehgal, she had a heart of gold. She always maintained that the freedom is literally not just the political, but it also means the social as well as the economic factor. So you can just say, in fact, there was one of the very famous speeches that she had actually said during her campaigning as a presidential candidate, and that she said that is the freedom comes in three forms. The first is political emancipation from the conqueror. The second is the economic emancipation, and the third one is basically the social one. And it is very sad that India has just got the political emancipation from the conqueror, not the other two. So she actually gave all her life to the struggle, to the endurance of the common folk of India. And not just that, every story has got a beginning. So what was the beginning of the story of Captain Laxmi Sehgal? Let us see. So if we talk about the beginning, so guys, what was there? In fact, in each and every stage of life, she was extraordinary. She was a meritorious student. She was a wonderful character who actually became one of the initial most ladies to become a doctor. She had earned her MBBS degree as well as her diploma in the gynecology and obstetrics, and she had a bright future ahead. However, she did not choose that, because let me just tell you one thing, that what happened, that after independence she started her medical practice in Kanpur. That means in the prime phase of her life, she was not practicing her profession, rather she was devoting her life as a soldier to the nation, right? And after getting independence for the country, then she started working for the common people, for the poor sections of the society as a doctor. So serving as a soldier, as a doctor, here goes the story of one of the leading ladies in India, Captain Laxmi Sehgal. Now, if we talk about the initial parts of her life, that where was she born and what was the story? So, Captain Laxmi Sehgal, as she was born as Captain Laxmi Swaminathan, on the October 24th, 1914, in the Madras province to S. Swaminathan, a talented lawyer, and A.V. Amukutty, a social worker and a freedom fighter. Okay, so her father was a lawyer and advocate. Her mother was a social activist and a freedom fighter. So naturally, it was obvious for her family to have that anti-British ideas in their mind, and it was also natural for the child in that family to bear that idea since her childhood. So what happened, that she actually completed the medical degree from the Madras Medical College and got her MBBS in 1938. It was the same year in which Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he had become the Congress president for the very first time. Okay, if you remember this, it was the Haripura session of Congress. In that year, Netaji had occupied the position of the Congress president. Okay, so there was some connection. All right, so intervening years saw Lakshmi and her family drawn into the ongoing freedom struggle. Why? Because as I told you that her father was an advocate and her mother was a social activist. In fact, initially she was a socialite who was primarily active in the social circles, giving some of the help to the needies. However, later on she became a staunch Gandhian activist. She became a staunch Gandhian activist, and let me tell you one thing, that one of the stories goes like that the child Lakshmi, she had to face that trauma of getting to see all her clothes burning in the name of Swadeshi movement, and her mother had set on fire all her clothes, all her favorite clothes in the bonfire of the foreign clothes that was being burnt. So such type of instances actually define a person and a person's personality in the upcoming time, and so was done with Captain Laxmi Sehgal. All right. So her first rebellion, in fact, as a child, we all have different type of perceptions, different type of mindset. So we must have done some sort of thing which we might get to ponder over, that how did we do that in our childhood. Captain Laxmi Sehgal, she also had such memories. In fact, during one of the press conferences, she recalled that during her childhood, the first thing that she had revolted against, that was the caste system in Kerala. Okay. In fact, let me tell you that what was the caste system in Kerala? The reason that because her mother was a Nair from Kerala. So, when she used to go to her grandmother's house, so there was an instance that one of the tribal girls were playing along with her, and her grandmother as well as her mother both scolded her that not to touch that girl. There was the concept of purity and pollution, basically defining the caste system in southern India. So in that very moment itself, on the very next day, the child Lakshmi, she decided to come back with that tribal girl and playing along with her hand in hand. She was scolded again, but this time she rebelled. She revolted against the instance. So what was the outcome? Ultimately, she won it, and the family was having no objections further on to allow that tribal girl to play with Lakshmi. But you can just identify from this instance that what a level of sensitivity that she had possessed since the beginning itself. And this sensitivity would go on further to allow her to become a doctor, and especially the doctor related to the women and their diseases. Now, talking about the other instance, that means meeting Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. So what was that instance that led her to meet Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose? In fact, as I told you that her family had the nationalist inclination, and in fact after turning to become a doctor at the age of 26 years, right, she had earned this medical degree in 1938 itself. After that she did diploma, and then in the age of 26 years, she left for Singapore in 1940, and 3 years later, she would be meeting to one of the legends of India, and that moment would be defining for her entire life. That would give her an identity that she would carry on throughout her life. All right. In fact, guys, let me tell you that a Council of Action, remember this name, this is important even from the exams point of view. The Council of Action formed in Singapore by the nationalist Indians like K.P. Kesava Menon, S.C. Guha and N. Raghavan, etc. That Council of Action had actually tried to invoke some sort of nationalist sentiments among the Indians who were lodged in the jails of Singapore. Remember that on the Malaya Peninsula, on the Malaysian Peninsula, And in the Singapore, more than 40,000 Indian prisoners were there. In fact, most of them were the soldiers who were living as the prison inmates or as the war prisoners captured by Japanese army. Got it? So there were the common people, there were the soldiers who were all involved in forming such an active group that would be working for the freedom of India by actively participating into the war struggle. However, this entire effort was quite stagnant until the arrival of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, because when he arrived in the month of July 1943, so what happened? That was the time when all of them got a hope, because he had come with a very, very concrete and very, very active idea. So after that, what happened? There was a decision taken to draft a women regiment in the Indian National Army, and that was the moment, because mostly the orthodox commanders, they were not ready to induct the women regiment in that army. However, it was Netaji who was always very much sure, very much certain about inducing the women regiment. Why so? Because it was the question of not just the social equality, it was also the question of having a reserved and a technically advanced regiment that would be required to serve the soldiers in in multiple ways, be it related to the medical help, or be it related to the artilleries or supplies or anything else. It was required. So that was a very far-sighted decision taken by Netaji. And after, let me tell you, after 5 hours long interview that was taken, 5 hours long interview was taken, and then it was finally decided that Captain Laxmi Sehgal, Dr. Lakshmi Swaminathan would be leading that regiment, which would be named after the most accomplished, in fact, the most celebrated and heroic warrior of 1857 revolt. And who was she? Again, a lady, Rani of Jhansi, the Queen of Jhansi, Rani Lakshmi Bai. So the name of regiment was given in her name, and Captain Laxmi Swaminathan, right, that was designation given to Dr. Lakshmi. All right. So that is how the story goes on. And if we come further, when she joined the INA and fought as a warrior, what happened? That the march to Burma, that was actually the entry point for the Indian National Army. So that began in 1944 in the month of December. However, by the month of March 1945, what happened? That the withdrawal decision was taken by the Indian National Army, because the Japanese armies, they were now getting offended. They were now getting pushbacks, and that is why even the INA was not in a condition to continue the fight further. And it was a matter of few days, a few weeks only, that either Japanese army would have surrendered or they would have been vanquished badly by the allied nations, particularly US. And that was the time, in fact, when most of the soldiers of the Indian National Army, they were captured by the British armies. In fact, Captain Laxmi Swaminathan was also arrested by the British army and kept under the house arrest in the jungles of Burma. And in the March 1946, she was sent to India. And why? Because do not forget that when in the March 1946 she was sent to India, it was only after the Red Fort trials. Red Fort trials, they were over. Red Fort trials were over. Okay. And what was the Red Fort trial? What were these Red Fort trials? Red Fort trials were the historic trials of the prisoners or of the captives of the Indian National Army. Very famously, 3 soldiers, right? Who were 3 famous soldiers? Right, if you remember, Gurbaksh Singh Dhillon, right, Syed Shahnawaz, and P.K. Sehgal, right? These 3 people, these three people actually, they became the identity of the entire nation. They became the face of the atrocities of the British on this country. When an open trial was conducted in the month of November 1945, and due to the popular protest, you will not find any such references in the history very commonly, but due to the popular protests going across the nation from Kolkata to Karachi, everywhere, these three soldiers had to be set free, and that became an iconic defeat of the British authorities in India. All right, and one of those whose name was Prem Kumar Sehgal, right, who was later promoted as a colonel, Prem Kumar Sehgal, he became the future husband of Captain Laxmi Swaminathan. So both of them got married, they had a family and all, and after the independence, Captain Laxmi Sehgal or Dr. Laxmi Sehgal, she continued her practice as a practicing doctor, treating her poor patients in Kanpur. Right, the couple got settled from Lahore because the Colonel Sehgal, he belonged to Lahore, but after the partition, he had to settle in Kanpur. In fact, Kanpur was a very significant place where a lot of migrants were also given the places to settle down, and Captain Laxmi Swaminathan made it very sure that she would be serving the poorest of the poor at a very, very nominal, in fact, almost free of cost. Okay, so that was her service going on, and when the service was going on, in fact, what happened that there was an incident, if you remember, there was an incident in the 1970s that the War of Freedom of Bangladesh, or the liberation of East Pakistan, that fight was there going on in 1971 between India and Pakistan. And during that campaign, what happened? Thousands of the Bangladeshi refugees, in fact, thousands of the East Pakistani refugees were lodging in India, and there was a pressure on the Indian government as well as the West Bengal government to serve those people medicinally and also to quench their thirst and hunger. So the government of West Bengal, headed by late Mr. Jyoti Basu, actually government insisted all over the country, insisted the doctors all over the country to arrive in Bengal to provide their medical services, or even also several people were insisted to donate for the help of the refugees. So that was the moment when she ventured into the politics. In fact, if we talk about her daughter, right, she was already a member of the CPIM, the Communist Party of India, Marxist. If you might have heard the name of that lady whose name is Subhashini Ali Sehgal, right? Subhashini Ali, actually she was she's daughter of Captain Laxmi Sehgal. Okay, so she was already a member. Her mother, as a doctor, she forwarded to West Bengal, served there, and got inspired from the ideology of the CPM and joined this party, because as per her own admission, she was always a socialist in her approach, because she never wanted that a lot of property and prosperity, a lot of accumulation of wealth. Rather, she always prioritized serving the needy and the poor. So that is why she joined the party and remained the member throughout her life. Okay, in fact, All India Democratic Women's Association, that was also a group that she had been a founding member, and later on there was a moment which came in her life then when she became a full-time activist, and that was 1984, the Bhopal Tragedy. She had led a medical team in Bhopal, and later on she did extensive research. To dictate and to rather expose the long-term side effects of this tragedy on the pregnant women. All right, and not just that. After the assassination of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi in 1984, she actually led the processions on the streets of Kanpur, making sure that no Sikh people in Kanpur were harmed. by the activists of the Congress, because that was the time when the Congress workers throughout the nation were, they were like headhunting for the Sikh people, arsoning into their properties just because the murderers of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi were two Sikhs. It did not mean that the entire community was responsible, but still they were being butchered like anything. In that moment also, at least in the city of Kanpur, Captain Laxmi Sehgal was very active to safeguard the lives of the Sikh community. And in fact, she had also against, she had also been against the organization of this Miss World event in Bengaluru in 1996, the very same event which was won by Aishwarya Rai, right? So that also was protested by Captain Laxmi Sehgal, because it was a kind of it was a kind of a joke on the face of an economically oppressed class of the people who were living in that same period in the same city, and the city was organizing the beauty pageant. That was very much contradictory, very much ironic in the nature. Okay. And then came a moment, another defining moment, another grand moment, that she was she was actually put forward as a presidential candidate, by the joint opposition in front of the missile man of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. She knew it very well that she won't be making it to the winning side. However, she just wanted to ensure, rather she had admitted herself that she wanted to ensure that she would be exposing or trying to expose this entire system, which allowed not just the poverty but also the discrimination to prevail even after having the full political freedom and independence. In fact, let me tell you that in her journey, whatever journey that she had throughout her life, it was a type of inextricable effort that she had made throughout the century, in fact the later half of the 20th century, that was simply outstanding. And she actually had last of her breath on 23rd of July 2012, that she left this world. And let all of us be inspired from the journey of this inspirational revolutionary who actually had a wonderful contribution to the making of our nation. So guys, that is all in today's session, and I hope that this entire story of one of the most legendary unsung warriors of India's freedom struggle, who contributed not just in the freedom fight but also afterwards, must be cherished and must be shared by all of you with all of your friends. And guys, this is a topic, in fact, that might give you a few questions also in the prelims examination, or at least in the mains examination, that is in the form of discuss the contribution of women. In fact, there was a question in the UPSC, let me tell you, there was a question in the UPSC examination in the GS paper 1 mains, that is, discuss the change in the role of the women participants in the freedom struggle post the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi. So one of the aspects which was added after the arrival of Mahatma Gandhi, that the women also participated in the freedom struggle, and not just in the non-violent struggle, but also in the revolutionary freedom struggle, armed resistance against the British Empire. So that could be, right, this chapter or this information could be one of the part of such answers. All right. So I hope that this lecture would be useful for all of you for your examination as well as for your general awareness related things. So do not forget to share this lecture with all of your friends. And if you happen to like this video in this session, do not forget to hit that like button, guys. And if you are new to our channel, you can hit the subscribe button as well as the bell icon to get the notifications of further sessions. So thank you so much for watching it. Take care, guys. Bye-bye. And let's meet in the next chapter of next part of this series tomorrow at the same time, 8 a.m. in the morning. Till then, have a great day ahead. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye and Jai Hind.